Welcome to Qatar KickAround, the nightly wrap-up and discussion of the day's action in the 2022 World Cup. From the group stage to the final, our team is here, keeping you on top of the world's most watched sporting event. Brought to you by Westwood One Sports.
Howdy-ho, and welcome to Matchday 5 of Qatar KickAround, our nightly wrap-up show of the action at the 2022 World Cup. Hi, I'm Peter, tagging along with the man that knows more about World Cup soccer than anybody you know, and the world's most interesting man, Andy Swift.
Peter, you happy? Or are you uneven happy?
I sweated through my shirt earlier today, so I had to change shirts, if that tells you anything.
You're stressed, not necessarily happy.
Yeah, my stress. And live from London, our noted football journalist amigo, Darth Lars Silvertson.
Yeah, slightly for the benefit of the stream viewers, slightly different hoodie today. I've gone with a gray hoodie.
You've gone with your hoodie selection.
Yeah, I had a dark blue one, I think, yesterday. Listen, I'm not just... Listen, the reason I'm wearing a hoodie is twofold. First of all, I am rapidly going bald and not quite comfortable with that yet. I'll get there, but, I need to work with myself a little bit here. So secondly, it is very cold over here. And like a lot of households on this side of the Atlantic, we're turning on the heating quite sparingly, as much as we can. That we are terrified. We live in terror of our electricity and gas bills. So we just freeze in the evening quite often, which is why I need to wear something on my head.
Well, we're glad you're here nonetheless, hoodie or not. We can't see all of you, but we do get to see lovely Richmond Town Square at night, so we like that.
Which is a lot nicer than my home office, which is just a disaster. A disaster area. But let's kick on. There was a game of football that I believe a large number of our listeners had an interest in.
For sure. Yes. Today was the day we all had been waiting for some time, since it was announced in the draw back in... When was the draw? Was it June? I don't remember.
December? No.
When was it? How long ago have we known? How long have we known this game was going to take place? It's been a long time. It feels like forever.
From the 70s.
Yes.
It felt inevitable.
Here we go. England 0, USA 0. And Lars, since again, you are our de facto non-biased person on the show when it comes to U.S. men's national team, I'm going to ask you for your thoughtful reaction to 0-0.
It's interesting hearing that you sweated through your shirt, because I guess that's the difference between having big emotional stakes in this and not. Obviously, this game meant a lot for you guys on an emotional level, which meant I think you found it more exciting than I did. I came at this more as someone who wanted a fun game of the soccer on a Friday night, our time zone. And I did not get that. Instead, I got a U.S. team that did a really good job stopping England from playing. Not quite the way I'd envisaged on our last show, but more than sort of hassling the center halves, they were really good at shutting down the midfield and just not letting them progress the ball up the field. They did that superbly well. And the result was that it felt a lot like past England performances. I tweeted something to the effect that, if I kind of squinted and closed my eye a little bit, I could almost hear the vuvuzelas in the background. It did remind me a little bit of 2010 under Capello, or even 2014 in Brazil. Just seeing an England team at a major tournament not able to progress the ball upfield because they can't put three passes together. That's some deep, dark deja vus for a lot of viewers in this country. But I think it was more about you guys doing a good job in shutting that down than necessarily it was about England being inept, is where I'm going with it.
My favorite tweet was one that Lars shared with us from somebody over there that tweeted out, our $250 million Rice Bellingham midfield just got shut down by a guy named Tyler.
Yep.
Yeah. Tyler,
it's a hard thing to fully accept, yeah.
Not a bad player.
But that's what happened, right? That's what happened.
Man.
Yeah, well, the midfield trio, it's nothing to sneeze at. One plays in Milan, one plays for Juventus, one plays in the Premier League. It's a decent midfield, right? I mean,
he plays for Valencia.
They're young. That's right, Valencia, yeah. They're young. I don't know.
You got good legs in there, and they did a great job. And I guess And that was another thing that one of you guys wrote in our WhatsApp chat, is that what England really need to do is put Kiefer Moore on in the second half and just go over the press like Wales did.
But
of course that's
Harry
not
Kane.
available. No, they.
Why couldn't you do that with good old Harry Kane? Tottenham does it to high effect.
I completely agree. A bit of pragmatism from England. Knock it long to Kane is something they should have considered doing here, but they didn't.
All right.
By the way, but you said it reminded you of England in 2010, but remember what we said yesterday, and this adds another one of those matches where a team that scores 6 or more goals in a World Cup in the group stages averages 1 goal.
The following
game. And England didn't even score that 1 goal. Especially going from game 1 to game 2, we talked about it, before we started recording. In World Cup history, the first date to the second date, there's very often a disparity with what you expect and what actually happens because the teams are kind of evening out both ways, right? Teams that you didn't think were as good are coming up. Teams that you thought maybe they're a little bit better than they actually are come a little bit down, and that's where you are.
So I was a little bit dismissive of this yesterday, I think. But there definitely was something in the second half of this game. Like, I'm not saying England weren't trying to win. They obviously were. But I think if they had to win this game, they would have acted differently, right? I think some of the tactical changes would have been, I think they would have moved more people forwards and taken more risks and stuff. I think there was a sense sort of from midway through the second half that, drawing this isn't terrible. Like, it's still, for England, that means they go into the last day in a pretty strong position, right?
Well, before I get Andy, I want to hear your general reaction to the game.
From the U.S. perspective,
either overall, whatever.
I was happy with the performance. I think what I didn't want to see was a 3-0 trucking because of what the pundits were saying in England. I would say, hey, a little bit more respect. Not that I predicted a tie, but not that a loss wasn't out of the question, but it was a respectable performance. But I think more encouraging was that it wasn't just based on grit and energy and all that.
Yes.
It was based on talent and strategy and technical ability and a little bit of the grit stuff, right?
Yes, that's all I asked for.
Exactly.
Which is a little bit of the old school, we got to use our, spirit and never say die attitude style of old USA, mixed with the, hey, we all play for big-time clubs now and make a lot of money, so we know what we're doing.
Right.
New USA. Yeah. And that's what I thought we got today.
Confidence.
That we got that today. We didn't get it against Wales, and we certainly didn't get it in some of the stuff that had happened leading up to the World Cup. So I'm
glad you brought that up, Andy, because I was speaking mostly from the perspective of why England weren't better. But you're right. I mean, you did use the ball very well when you were able to. There were some really slick sequences when you guys moved forward, and it is definitely more. As much as I have a strong fondness for the US team of 2014, like, you have moved on from just Kyle Beckerman and Jermaine Jones kicking the crap out of everyone. As much as fun as that was, this is obviously a much more advanced team in so many ways.
Okay, so let's talk about lineups. And one of my most maddening things about U.S. soccer social media is that we have spent the last, year and a half, 2 years celebrating MMA, McKennie, Musa, and Adams. And when the lineups came out today, everything just went aflame because people were mad that Aronson wasn't playing. And it's like, why? We've been waiting all this time to field this specific threesome in midfield. And I'm going to trust that if he's healthy, Berhalter's not going to start McKennie if he's not ready to go.
Yeah. So let me reply to that, because I was one of those that was hoping for an Aronson is the one you said that.
At least in terms of the midfield, yes.
And I was one of those that I thought he would be a good fit to start this game. But basing it on, I didn't know if McKennie would be 100%, and he still wasn't. What McKennie showed me and those like me that were calling for Aronson is like, hey, I don't need to be at 100%. I can still bring it. Right.
Yes.
And I can still perform well. And so that's what we learned too. Like, we have a high quality midfielder here who doesn't have to be at 100% to impact the game. Right.
Very impressed.
And let me also state, just again, as somebody that has been through this cycle more times than I can count, Andy is the same thing. Actually living in a universe where we as a fan base argue and fret and complain about the coach not picking the right guy is such a refreshing place to be.
Because there's options.
Because he actually has options, and that's nothing we've ever had before, at least in the way that we have it now, and I very much appreciate that. So everything was the same for the U.S., with the exception of Haji Wright, who comes in for Sargent. Again, I think this game proves out this is a really weird, lacking space for Berhalter in terms of strikers, because Haji didn't do much, not necessarily any different, more or less than Sargent. So I have a weird feeling that Jesus is going to start the Iran
I was about
game.
to say, I would have thought, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, let's go ahead.
Well, just very, like, with Josh Sargent, you get a guy who puts a lot of effort in, but, you know, there's some room for improvement in the technical qualities and his abilities as a finisher.
Good effort, good game. Good effort, good game.
I hope that's not too disrespectful. And you're right, Haji didn't make a big difference in this one. Didn't have a lot of service, to be fair to him. But I certainly felt, unless you have... isn't it then worth trying Jesus, who's more of a false nine, who'll drop a little bit deeper, try to connect with the midfield a little bit more, because your wide players are so advanced anyway, especially where...
Yeah, so I don't remember if we talked about it on a previous podcast, on the preview shows, or on our kick-around show. But there was a thought that the three forwards would each get one game. Remember?
Sure. Yeah.
And we just got the games wrong when they were going to play. But there's also a thought that, you know, these nines that he has, at least these first two games, were going to press and run a lot, even if they weren't going to be an integral part of being on the receiving end of what wasn't coming, right? They were still going to be involved in the game from a pressing point of view. And so it does make sense to start a different one game and then the other, because you get fresher legs that way, right? And I mean, if it's basically one or the other and you don't get much difference between the two, why not just start one game and the other one the other game, and then kind of sub for each other?
And I know there was a lot of outcry, not just about Aronson playing in the game, but Giovanni Reyna, who did, by the way, sub in extremely late. I guess if I was going to say, if I had one frustration, I was talking to the TV, you know, hey, Greg, we're like at 60 plus minutes now. It's time to make some changes. That would be helpful if you'd go ahead and do that, sir.
Like last game too, same thing.
But there is a part of me that thinks that this is part of an elaborate plan for him to save those guys
in the must-win game.
In the must-win game, where they've seen them the least, and they've now got all the energy and the most. And again, as we've said all along, this was always going to come down to the Iran game on Tuesday.
And they're going to low block, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's the Gio Reyna game, isn't it?
It is.
I think there was some puzzlement on this side of the Atlantic why Aronson didn't start, but at least then didn't come on earlier, because he's made a very big impression after joining Leeds.
I get the sense that Berhalter is one of those, and I don't know that I don't know if this is an American thing, but I've seen it a lot and I've heard it a lot from American coaches where everything's going really well. I don't want to make a change and screw things up. And it's about timing of when you make the change. What is the game state in that particular moment? Like, you feel like it's 60 minutes, it's time to make a change, but the game state may not allow for that.
Yeah. So if it would have been a draw or Wales would have won, if Wales would have won the other game, does Berhalter go with a different lineup? Because then you really need a
we talked about that yesterday.
And I don't know. I think he still would have started the same lineup, and then you react maybe differently.
It's funny. I when I was watching the Wales-Iran game, and we'll talk about it later, obviously I kept getting mad at the commentator saying, wow, this 0-0 status is really good for the USA. And I was like, quit jinxing it. And I thought, well, if Iran score, and then the red card, and then Iran scores, and I thought, that's not the worst thing. But here's my worry. Iran now actually has something to play for in this game.
Yeah.
They don't need much to get through, and they've got all this other emotional stuff going on that's kind of, you would think is dragging them down, but maybe now it's powering them. And
did you listen to our preview show?
Yes. Yes, it was always going to come down to this game.
Yeah, you guys. Now, to be fair, you've been on the money. You said 3 draws, wasn't that the prediction? And you got 2
on my end, it was as 3 draws, and that would get Iran through instead of the U.S. Peters did the 1-1-1, which would get them through. I don't disagree. I mean, I think either way, we're 50-50 here, and we're still there. right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you're saying, because I was checking the betting odds, as I'm prone to do, and the betting markets have you at pretty close to 50-50 to either to get through, as it is now, which is it's not the worst. I'm a little bit worried about how much better Iran were against Wales. This was much more the Iran team I was expecting in this tournament, not the team that collapsed in the first thing. And even before the red card, I thought they were well on top and looked the better team there.
All right, don't waste your Iran-Wales talk quite yet. We're not done talking about U.S.-England, because another observation I had, and I was making notes in my book, and I was continuously impressed with the amount of time and the periods of time the United States wasn't even. They were actually the better team in this game. I mean, there was a consistent run of opportunities that were all the United States, especially in the first half, that just kept coming. They all weren't
like the 5 straight corners in the second half.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, they all weren't great opportunities, but they certainly were chances, and they certainly weren't backing down, and they certainly weren't playing deep. It's good to see the United States play a team of the quality of England. And again, this also continues the weird trend of the U.S. playing up to their opponent or down, about the level of their opponent. They consistently do this. They get against one of the best teams and they just kind of like come to life. And that was true again today. But all of these opportunities, really magic moment. I mean, let's think about it. The Weston McKennie opportunity. I know he misses it, but man, that's a chance that you think McKennie normally hits. The Dest opportunity where he absolutely sits Maguire and has it on his left foot, and Maguire just recovers enough to block it. Yeah. Those little moments, Pulisic's off the post where he tries to push one in just the tiniest space, and he beats Henderson. These are all really, really good moments, and certainly better moments than we saw against Wales. And the reason why I'm bringing all this up is despite what Lars says about Iran playing better today, I certainly feel way better about the U.S. chances on Tuesday than I thought I would, considering Iran, again, has a lot to play for.
Yeah. Can I also throw in one thing? I mean, certainly in the second half, I was sat there thinking, I was almost certain England was going to win in the end. And what I expected to happen was, a small defensive mistake, a cheap penalty, something like this, a set piece. I was fully awaiting
Harry Kane magic.
Yeah, well, or just a sort of underwhelming goal that Harry Kane has scored so many of in his career. He's relentless at that. And it just never came. And he missed that one chance he got. But, the Zimmerman snafu never came. Tim Ream didn't do anything stupid. I
thought Ream had a good game, actually.
No one really messed up, which is just it's this thing you don't. If you've sat watching a game where there weren't a lot of chances and it wasn't super entertaining, it's a weird thing to sort of celebrate. But, the World Cups are about moments, and there were no terrible moments and in the wrong end for you guys today, and that's important.
Well, what I will say there were a couple mess-ups there at the end, a couple of turnovers in key parts of the field that when you turn the ball over, it's not turning it over in your own third, it's turning it over at midfield without a lot of protection in the back. And they recovered really, really well.
There's a moment where Tyler Adams makes a 75, 80-yard sprint when Anthony Robinson gets caught up field. And that was, just vote that man in as president of the United States.
Yeah, no, he was a beast today, for sure.
Farting superhero today. The passing map that's being shown around for England that has them just all kind of horseshoe shaped, and Tyler Adams is in the middle of it is
the big horseshoe of doom.
And and let me also say this: considering how Iran played today, just go back and look at the stats from England USA today. It's a largely very, very even set of numbers. 55% percentage of ball possession for England, equal on big chances. Passing is essentially the same, 87% for England, 84% for the USA. Expected goals, all total
what was
shots.
Expected goals?
Expected goals was 0.54 for England, 0.61 for the United
States. Really
States.
Even. I thought it would be a little bit better for the U.S. I thought their chances were a little bit more clear, but okay.
But here's the one thing that I do want to talk about, because I continue to get frustrated, is set piece play for the United States. While I think Pulisic improved somewhat in his corner kicks today, I'm still frustrated that we don't have a better corner kick taker, especially considering that he takes them from both sides of the field with the same foot. Yeah. So one is an in-swinger, one is an out-swinger, and you don't have, apparently, an option outside of him to do it.
And they had 7 today. What huge opportunities,
yes,
right? 7.
Yes, and I don't know if they really had a dangerous. Was there a dangerous opportunity from any of those corners?
Yes, one that was a short service that ended up being. It turned out to be a good opportunity.
And there was one where he put a very good ball in that took a Harry Maguire tippy-toe jump to push it over, who I think McKennie was coming in, or Zimmerman was coming in at the back post that he saved.
Yeah, that was, I think that might have been Ream, actually, because I remember seeing that thinking that's going to be a goal for sure, but Maguire stood tall.
Lars, from this game, since, again, you are based over there and you have a neutral view, does today's performance from the U.S. change anything that you feel about the team in terms of quality, or like, oh, wow, I need to...
I think, I guess, I wasn't necessarily surprised that your midfield made it as tough for England as they did. That was the thing I kind of saw coming. But I expected England's, as listeners of yesterday's show will know, I kind of expected the sort of superior individual talent that the England have going forward would tell in the end, and it didn't. And that's partially your defense standing up better than I was expecting. The other thing is, I want to put this to you. So the England perspective of it all. I see Gareth Southgate talking after the game. He says, and I quote, "Our 2 centre backs were absolutely outstanding on the ball. To play with such composure against that pressing was unbelievable." Which I'm like, dude,
What?
what are you talking about? I mean, the whole thing was that they weren't able to progress the ball through the midfield, and they ended up passing it back and forth between themselves and out to the fullbacks, which was exactly what the US wanted them to do. Like, what are you talking about? Maybe he shared my concern that, like, well, he didn't play, so that would have been hard for him, but like Maguire or Stones would just kind of fall over and give the ball to Wright for no reason. But that's a strange old comment. He also said, well, the big talking point in England about this team is they have this problem, England, is that they have too many good players who people like to fit into a starting 11, right? So in that sort of line of 3 behind the striker, they started with Mount and then Saka and Sterling either side of him, but that does leave you with sort of Foden and Grealish and Rashford outside. And if you don't win and you don't play well, everyone's going to decide that, oh, if just Foden had played, everything would have been fine. I actually not sure that would have changed much of anything, but there's a huge clamor for Foden now after that game, I guess.
My sense is over in England, you're going to be frustrated that England didn't play better against the U.S., a team that I'm sure everybody feels like you should just stomp on any particular given day.
I think people who know football don't see it like that anymore. For the main reason is that you have enough players who play in big fancy clubs that people just sort of, these are serious guys.
At least they recognize the names. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, and the fact that like Aronson and Tyler Adams have done well for Leeds, and they were a little bit condescending in the TV studio before the game, I thought. But they were going, they have a lot of youth and a lot of talent, but they don't have, the kind of quality we have and stuff. But that's kind of true, I guess, as well.
Well, I'm sure the Phil and Roy and everybody else in particular over there on the English broadcast will probably spend more time belating or being angry about England than maybe changing their attitude about the United States or giving them credit.
But I think there is an acknowledgement that you guys are getting better rapidly and that you are a bit of a coming force. I think that's probably fair to say.
Bill Connolly of ESPN tweeted before the game, the U.S. lineup, but written as the clubs, the 11 the United States play for. And again, this makes me teary-eyed, because I've just never thought I would see a United States men's national team with that kind of lineup.
Arsenal, Fulham,
Nashville,
Major League Soccer, Milan,
Juventus, Valencia, and Leeds, and then up top
Chelsea,
Lille,
and whoever in Turkey,
Turkish club I can't name off the top of my head. Which is amazing. Just stupidly amazing.
And comparing it to the, was it yesterday's trivia question?
He's in Antalyaspor. I had to double check that.
Yeah.
9 of the 11 in 2010 in that draw also played in Europe. Yeah. But it wasn't those clubs.
No. Yeah. It wasn't. Okay, so England 0, the United States 0. It sets up for the craziest set of Permian. Well, it's not the craziest result situation now. I mean, there was some other ways this game could have turned out today, or the Wales-Iran game that could have made Group B even nuttier. But everything's still wide open.
But for the U.S., it's pretty clear cut.
Yes, so we'll talk about what it's going to take. We'll kind of preview the U.S.-Iran game, and we'll also talk about the rest of the day's games next here on the Kick Around. This is part 2 of Matchday 5 of Qatar Kick Around, our daily wrap-up show of the action at the World Cup 2022, located in some place called Qatar. By the way, I need to give a U.S. men's national team jersey update, what I wore for the game today. Did I wash it? Or did I leave the stain that is on the front of the shirt that is in the shape of Qatar? Which did I do? Since I didn't get any help from Andy and Lars yesterday.
I thought we were very helpful. And he said wash it.
You guys both just helped in no way, shape, or form. Now, the other thing that I forgot to do in the first segment was ask Andy. It's everybody's favorite feature of Qatar Kick Around. It is Andy's World Cup trivia. It's Lars's least favorite feature, but the listeners love it, Lars.
Well, today's is simple because we have a lot to talk about, obviously, because the U.S. plays. So I'm going to keep it short and simple and not too hard, but it does relate to Iran's win today. Their 2-0 win tied the best result in modern World Cups, this is since 1970, for a team following a defeat in which they allowed 6 or more goals. It tied for the best result after that having happened, 2-0. Last time it happened, the only other time it happened was at '86 World Cup when Hungary got trucked 6-0 by the Soviet Union, but then followed up the loss with a 2-0 win over which CONCACAF nation?
What year was it?
86. World Cup played in Mexico.
All right. We will hold on to that, and we'll answer that question before the end of today's show.
But related to Iran, it's telling. It's not easy to get trucked like they did, right? To get stomped. Pantsed wouldn't be the appropriate term, right?
I don't think
they got
they
trucked.
were pantsed.
No, they were trucked. Right.
6-2, and then
I like
turn
the
around.
fact. Look, Lars is learning. Lars is figuring it out.
They got freight trained.
And then turn around and win a game 2-0.
Amtracked.
No, 18-wheelered. That was Costa Rica. They got 18-wheelered. Turn around and win 2-0, right? I mean, that's
rare. The tubes down in London, the subways. Like you get run over by a tube. I guess that doesn't work. Okay. Hey, all right. So the U.S. obviously draws today, puts themselves on 3 points. They are now behind Iran. And that was a crazy, crazy weird game.
Yeah.
And And for a whole host of insane reasons, Iran ends up winning that game 2-0. I was fairly convinced that the fact that Wales gave up that second goal late, very, very late, was going to become in its own way its own problem. But now that based on how today's U.S.-England game worked out, I guess it's not that big of a deal because it did salvage their goal differential. They're now downtown to a -2, same as Wales.
Right. It actually hurts Wales a little bit because Wales really had an opportunity, if they don't concede that second goal, to beat England by 2 at that point. No.
Yeah.
No,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, no, it'd still be difficult.
Anyway, the point being, the important thing for everybody to know that only cares about the United States is the United States simply on Tuesday just have to win. Nothing else gets them through the group. A win and only a win. It doesn't make any difference how many they win by, I don't think. It's just they can win by 1-0 or 100-0
Right.
or 99-98. They have to just win the game against Iran. Iran, on the other hand, don't need anywhere near as much. They can draw against the United States and get through because that would put them just 1 point ahead of the United States, and then their battle becomes would base on the Wales-England result,
right, exactly,
right?
because if Wales gets to 4 and then goal difference comes into play. But from the U.S. perspective, it's very easy. Win, you're in. Draw or lose, you're out. Now, they do have a chance to still get first place.
Yes.
Right? And
The U.S.
The U.S.
Yeah.
So winning by a lot, if Wales beats England by 2, let's say, England's goal differential comes down to 2. And if the U.S. wins by 2 or 3, then they could get first place.
But guys, this isn't happening.
No. Well,
what's not happening? Wales isn't beating England?
No, I really don't think so. But
I don't think so either.
It would be funny, but I don't think it's happening. What I think is really interesting about this, how this sets up this last day, is what it does to Iran's approach to the game. Because one of our listeners on the stream on YouTube, I think Striker11, he raises an interesting point here, which is that we'll see what Iran decides to do. Logic says they should play more conservatively, but they look much better pressing and flying all over the field and being more assertive against Wales as they were increasingly in that second half. They seem to play better when they were opening up a little bit, I think. But it wouldn't really make sense for them to do that against the United States.
Well, knowing how Queiroz approaches games, I mean, that was a game they had to win.
Yes.
Wales was a game they had to win. Against the U.S., they just need a draw. So I think they will be conservative. I don't know, right?
Yes, and they're also hampered by the fact that, and help me with the pronunciation of his last name, Lars.
Johannabash? Just say it really quickly.
Johannabash.
Johannabash.
He got a yellow. He got his second yellow today, and he's a critical component to their attack.
Yeah, because he's fast. He's the speedy one. We'll see if Azmoun can play. He obviously has had some injury troubles. He came on in the first game, but he didn't actually come on in this one, did he?
Azmoun played.
No, he was there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm getting my things mixed up. Yeah, he played. He's had injury, but he came off. That's what happened. Good Lord. It's a long time ago now. There's been a lot of soccer. But I think Johannabash is the guy who provides a little bit of speed, which, given that we're expecting them to sit back, it's a bit of a shame for them that he's away. And he looked like he was unhappy with himself when he picked up that yellow card, because that was not a necessary yellow card for him to pick up.
One of my notes in the game is Wales - way too much possession. Because the Welsh isn't... Look, this was a battle of two teams, neither of which really like to possess the ball very much. They like to, kind of defend and counter, and Wales... And that actually is weird because Wales couldn't do much with the ball despite the fact that they had a ton of possession.
Yeah, and they were very disappointing in so many ways, Wales, and I thought it was...
Bale in particular.
Yes, but I guess with Bale, you kind of expect Bale to not do much, and you hope he turns up for the moments when they come around. I was more disappointed with Aaron Ramsey, to be honest, because he was just really far off his best. And it was just, it was a really dispiriting and demoralizing performance from the Wales perspective, because there just wasn't much to be happy about. And a deserved 2-0 loss. And I really have a hard time seeing how that team can do anything against England.
All right, so Andy, now, and I'll ask you this same question in a second, Lars. Now that you've seen the United States twice and Iran twice, what are your, pros and cons to each to USA's
I guess you're
task
asking,
on Tuesday.
do I still believe it'll be a tie and Iran goes through, or do I feel like the U.S. Can win the game? I feel like the U.S. can win the game for sure, but I do fear bunkered down Iran defending really well like they can, and the U.S. doesn't find a way to get a. Today they had opportunities, they didn't get any goals.
Right.
I mean, and that can happen against Iran as well. So that would be my fear, is that they just can't.
Goal scoring has been
break it down.
The United States problem. Lars, you got a view on that?
No, I think Andy's nailed it. And the thing that you also fear with Iran is that they have some decent players going forward. So if they do get chances, they're dangerous. The guy Taremi, I'm a big fan. I think he's terrific. He didn't score against Wales, but I thought he played well. And
the Welsh didn't need to win this game, and I was surprised the Welsh continuously got caught with so many people pressed high, and then Iran would just counter.
You say they didn't have to win. I think they looked at it as like, this is where we get the 3 points.
Yeah, I agree with Lars. This is for sure.
I don't think I think they basically expect 0 from England, and this is where they were hoping to get their points.
Okay. Well, that sequence in the 52nd minute where the Iranian striker hits the right post, the ball comes out, and then another guy tries to hit a beautiful shot with his left, and it comes off the crossbar, and then the rebound shot gets saved by Hennessy was insanity. That was a great cycle. Anybody disagree with the Hennessy red card?
No, there were 2 red cards there, I thought. I mean, I guess Nico Williams was heading back.
Yeah, I don't think that's a dog's go.
No, but it's definitely, it's definitely, yes.
But his foot was high, very high.
Yeah, serious foul play is the word for it, isn't it? When you subject the
And by the way,
to dangerous.
Did anybody see Rob Page take the potty break? Rob Page, the Welsh manager, in the 81st minute, there was a substitution going on, and he ran back to the locker room. You don't see managers leave the field very often.
Did he have gastrointestinal issues?
Well, maybe he had to pee or something. But whatever he did it quickly because he was running back on the field by the time the whole substitution sequence was ending.
Okay.
My big Rob Page takeaway from this is pre-match when he was asked about whether they would be, making some kind of gesture in the line of what the Germans did. And he became the latest moron to say something along the lines of, well, in hindsight, the Germans, I'm sure, wish they hadn't because, they should have focused on winning the game. How monumentally stupid do you have to be to think that covering your mouth for 5 seconds during the pre-match photo has anything to do with the 90 minutes of soccer that follows? I'm sorry. If you think that actually impacts it, then you, sir, are a massive idiot. And it's probably not a good thing for Wales that he's in charge because he's clearly not very intelligent.
All right, well, we've said it all along. You can tattoo it on your body. I don't care. You can write it in a book. You can whatever. It was always going to come down to Tuesday's game against Iran, and now you've got an Iranian team that that have something to play for, and that's the downside of them winning that game against Wales today. Instead of getting the 0-0 draw that we were this close. We were so close. Yeah. It was feeling so perfectly set up, but that's okay. The U.S. needs a challenge, and maybe that's it. The other game of note
I forgot to do it. I should also pipe in the tired, old, but worthwhile joke about how it isn't the first time when Hennessy has raised the limb ill-advisedly. You may remember a couple of years ago, he was a photo of him doing essentially a Hitler salute in a restaurant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
He managed to get out of escape punishment by basically, they were arguing that he was trying to catch the waiter's attention and he just didn't understand the implications of the gesture, which led to the very magnificent headline where Hodgson says that Wayne Hennessy is desperate to learn more about the Nazis because there's clearly a gap in his knowledge here. I hope he has. I hope he spent a lot of time watching the History Channel because, of course, it's good knowledge for Wayne Hennessy there. He'll have plenty of time to watch History Channel in the hotel now that he is banned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the other game of interest today, and I thought this was a good, fun game to watch, and they clearly are probably many people's second favorite team in the tournament. The Dutch versus the Ecuadorians. By the way, Ecuador is now officially my team that has the best 2 kits. in the World Cup.
Can we do just, Lars, sorry, 30 seconds of kit talk, bringing it back to the U.S.? Yes,
I'll turn off my feed here.
I dug Ecuador's kits, but the U.S., the color, not necessarily
the Monica Lewinsky kits today?
But the color, if you have that blue shade with white shorts and red socks, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I totally.
That would be the look.
Yes, Nike completely let everybody. In my head, the reason why Nike sucks at jerseys this year is because they're saving all their powder for 26.
Okay.
And they're gonna they wanted people to buy the least amount of shirts now, so that in 4 years people
really
will go, well, I didn't buy one 4 years ago, so maybe I really should spend the $180 million to buy both kits this time.
That's
Sorry,
a stretch.
Lars, you can come back on now.
Ecuador's kit.
Kit talk is over.
Yeah, all good.
Okay. This was a great game. It was a lot of fun. I thought Ecuador got screwed on the goal that got overturned.
Sure. Yeah.
Lars, do you agree with that rule, man?
Yeah, I thought that was harsh.
He was already diving the other way when that.
Yeah.
So the only thing I wondered about that, was that a situation where the decision was made on the field and VAR can't overturn that, or did VAR review it and say, nope, it's not a clear and obvious error, so it's not worth telling him to go back and look at?
The decision on the field was no offside.
So VAR was the one that told him it was offside.
Right? Isn't that? Oh, no, they didn't go to VAR.
It's the question of whether the guy in an offside position impacts the goalkeeper's ability to play the ball, right?
Right.
And you can argue that since he's straight in front of him, he does. But
except for the fact that the goalkeeper's already on the ground.
Yes, you rightly make the point that,
Apologies. The call was the assistant referee.
Yeah. I have a note here from that I took during the game from Lars's WhatsApp chat message. Netherlands properly rattled.
Yeah,
in this game.
They were rattled. They were shook. What would be the U.S. version of that?
That's it. No, rattled, shook, nervous, shaky.
Because after the equalizer, I had to take a phone call, and just while I was on the phone, there was a shot off the bar, and just the Dutch were clearly confused and worried, and Ecuador were running all over the place. I mean, Ecuador are kind of a fun team because they have a lot of strong and fast guys who do a lot of running, whereas the Dutch, I get that their concept is that they want to try to control possession and sort of move it around in a very sort of well-organized and clever way, the way Van Gaal team has traditionally done, but they just couldn't make anything happen here. They had, 2 shots in the entire game? This was pretty bad from the Netherlands. They
were outshot 15-2 in this game. And again, Ecuador continued to impress. Yeah. Obviously for the Dutch, they know that they go into the last game playing against Qatar, who were, not a very good team. And, and Ecuador has to still face against Senegal, which now becomes a massive game. On when will they play? Tuesday? No, they'll play on Wednesday, I think.
No, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
okay, so
Tuesday.
It'll be a big game for those sides. But I just thought Ecuador continues to be entertaining. Enner Valencia, by the way, has now scored 6 consecutive goals for Ecuador, dating back to the previous. Excuse me, let me restate this. Enner Valencia has now scored 6 consecutive goals for Ecuador in the World Cup. Wow. Dating back to the previous World Cup. He is the first South American player to ever do that.
For any club,
which is a Squawka stat I read today.
Wow. And that South America, so that includes Maradona and Messi and Pele and all those guys. Ronaldo.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, that's something. You made a comment. What CONMEBOL qualifying will do for you in relation to Ecuador. What do you mean by that? What?
Just that you don't. All CONMEBOL qualifying games are difficult games.
So it sharpens you up for World Cup.
It's a gladiator school, right? If you come through it, you're probably a good team.
Because Ecuador, in terms of average age, is the 3rd youngest. The U.S. is the 2nd youngest. Mm-hmm. The difference between the two is literally a half a year. It's like 25 and a half to 26 or something like that. And to me, the difference in the qualities between the team is that Ecuador has to fight through the qualification of CONMEBOL. Yeah. The U.S. doesn't have to. They have a couple of quality teams to play. The rest of it is more about just street fight kind of stuff.
That's why, in the previous shows, I in one of those shows, I said, if you come out of qualifying, if you survive qualifying in South America, it doesn't matter if you finish 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. you're good. You're going to be good
Yeah.
if you come out of that confederation.
So
the only thing that's interesting to note about Ecuador is there was a school of thought, which I never fully bought into, but there was a school of thought going into the tournament that Ecuador, because they play their home games at altitude, in Quito, so, it's like 9,000 feet above sea level, and so that helps them get a strong record, and that might help them qualify. And there was a suggestion that they might not have the same capacity in Doha. I think we can write that off as a bad take, because I think there's no lack of physical effort, and the way they grew into this game was impressive, right?
Yeah,
because they got stronger. You would expect a team that's all about the running and being forceful and quite direct to unsettle the Dutch maybe early on, but then wane as the game went on. The opposite happened. They become much stronger in the second half, which I thought was really impressive.
Yeah, plus there are other, you go play other places in South America where you also have to play in altitude, so you're also having to get results on the road.
Lars, are you worried about the Dutch? Are they not as good as we thought maybe they were? Or is it just kind of the slow build of the orange?
I'm not super impressed with them. I'm not. And, I mean, the likely outcome is still that they get you guys or Iran in the first knockout, right? That's what we think will probably happen here.
Well, I mean, they're tied on 4 points. Again, they get Qatar next, so the odd. I mean, that could. So if Ecuador beats Senegal and the Netherlands beat Qatar, that becomes a battle for goal difference and all of that.
Yeah.
So.
Because I think, but this was a very poor performance by them. They were underwhelming against Senegal and poor here. So they have some, I think Louis van Gaal has some thinking to do. I think that's fair to say.
And I just want to point out, Andy, the genius of Andy on match day 1A, Andy pointing out that Ecuador may come down to rue the fact that they didn't fight to get more goals against Qatar, because if they end up in a goal differential battle against the Netherlands for who's first, who's second, that's a big deal based on who they have to go play in the round of 16. And that would really stink if not fighting to get 3, 4, 5 goals against Qatar comes back to bite them.
And I know I'm getting slightly ahead of myself here, but we can see the writing on the wall chart. There's a pretty high likelihood that it ends up being you guys against the Dutch in the next knockout round, right? I think that's
assumptive there.
You couldn't possibly say, but I can say that.
Okay.
And so far, based on the 2 games I'm seeing of them against Senegal and Ecuador, you would be entirely capable of beating them, I think.
Yeah, and Ecuador needs a draw. Senegal has to win their game.
Right.
Right.
Very good. And then the other game today was Qatar-Senegal. I slept through it, Lars. You were on assignment because I recorded the Iran-Wales game and watched it at 7 o'clock instead of that. So
you chose
please.
that over Qatar-Senegal?
I did, yes, for weird, stupid reasons. So, Lars, can you give us a quick 30-second synopsis of Qatar-Senegal?
Qatar were terrible in the first half. They were like as bad as they were in the first game, like really, really disappointing. Just poor. And Senegal were completely in control. Then, was it around halfway through the second half? I mean, some way through the second half. It's almost as if, I don't know if any of you guys are do a lot of ocean fishing in the ocean, like for tuna and like for serious swordfish and whatever.
Afraid of the water.
There is what?
No,
there is a thing about fishing, sort of large game fish, is that they massively kick off when they see the boat. Somehow, you can often get them like coming up towards the surface, but there's always like an extra blast of like, oh god, energy from them when they start seeing the boat. And I wonder if that's kind of what happened to Qatar here. They maybe they just looked at the clock and say, hey, it's about 20 minutes until we're like out of this World Cup effectively, and we'll have done nothing, because they really woke up in the second half. I thought
they did. But they also started playing with more soccer acumen, and I was just railing on them game 1 for not having basic soccer acumen and things related to that. And the first half, again, it looked a lot like that, and suddenly they found it. So how does that happen?
Yeah,
I mean, they were trapping and passing well, which
and
was
there was one
issue
thing that was very noticeable, was that more players were making forward runs off the ball, because in the first half, like, they have one player, Afif, number 11. Who's got some game, he looks like he could do a job in a reasonable club team, he's got some skill, but it was clear that for a very long time early on in this game, when he had the ball, the rest of the team were kind of, oh, look, the man who's good has the ball. Let's see what he does. Like they weren't really presenting him with options. But as the second half went on, they started making runs ahead of the ball. Like when Afif had the ball, people were actually moving forwards and presenting him with people he could feasibly pass it to, and that made a really big change. So they scored one really well worth goal actually. And had a couple of chances and had at least one sort of short spell of football in which they didn't look completely incompetent. Lose 3-1 in the end.
Yeah, they lost 3-1, and now they are tied with South Africa, the only two host teams not to get out of group play. And again, just to remind everybody, the United States in 1994 got out of their group as the host nation in the World Cup played in the United States. And that team was terrible back in the day.
Where South Africa still had a chance heading into Game 3.
Yeah.
Qatar's the first one ever now to get
Knocked
eliminated after two games.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good
And worth from this game, if you didn't see it and you haven't caught the highlights, the second goal is one of those. I love this. It's a corner and it's a beautifully timed run from Famara Diédhiou and a sort of glancing header. That was that was a technically very well executed goal.
We will take our second break. When we come back, we will preview a little bit of tomorrow and also answer Andy's World Cup trivia question next. This be part 3 of Matchday 5 of Qatar KickAround. Just a little bit more time left. Before we get into the preview of Matchday 6 and those games, it is now time for everybody's favorite feature of Qatar KickAround. Gather around, children, as it's time for the answer to Andy's World Cup trivia question.
Today's very easy question. Who, because Iran was able to overcome a loss where they allowed 6 or more goals with a 2-0 win today. That was the best result any team in World Cup history, well, since 1970, has gotten after getting scored on 6 times in their previous game. The only other time that a team was able to do that was in '86 when Hungary got beat by the Soviet Union 6-0, and then they followed up that game with a 2-0 win over what CONCACAF nation was the question. The tournament was played in Mexico. The U.S. didn't play in that tournament. Mexico was obviously good.
Yes.
So only one other team from CONCACAF made it, and it was the last time Canada made it to a World Cup. They beat Canada 2-0 in that tournament.
You didn't give us a chance to guess.
Oh, I was talking to the listeners. Would you have guessed that?
Here's your opportunity, Lars.
I would definitely have guessed that.
No, I would have.
We were late in time.
Never disprove
You would have
it.
guessed Canada, though, right?
I was stuck. I was worried that this was maybe a game Mexico blew in the group stage. Because I was trying to think there was only 2 CONCACAF teams back then that were in the World Cup. Mm-hmm. Not 3 or 4, and I was trying to remember who it was, and it was '86 was the last time Canada was in a World Cup. So Interesting. A question dawned on me for qualification for 26. Because U.S., Canada, Mexico are all hosts, they all automatically make the tournament. How will CONCACAF qualifying be handled at that point?
Yeah, that's a good question. All confederations are going to get the number of slots increased. We just don't know exactly how many more CONCACAF will get.
Well, so if CONCACAF normally gets 4, and I know there's more teams, will they get 2 more or 3 more?
They may get 2 more for this tournament, yes. So that means the 2 teams or 3 teams.
So typically what have now been the 3 big teams in CONCACAF are eliminated from the entire process, and then it's all left to Costa Rica, Panama, Jamaica.
God, there's going to be so much CONCACAF in this tournament.
Yes, there would be way too much.
It just dawned on me how much CONCACAF.
There will be more of everything.
There'll be more Asia, more CONCACAF, more Africa.
Well, no, hang on. Yeah, but you're getting all the extra slots, and that is on top of Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. being qualified as hosts.
Yeah, but it's
oh
just,
my God.
It goes from 3 to 6. It goes from 3 to 6. Like,
yeah. So you're gonna no. Let me just see it for the listeners, because this only just dawned on me. So it's gonna be U.S., Mexico, and Canada is gonna be there automatically, and then there's gonna be 6 other CONCACAF teams.
No, 3 more for 6 total. So
French Guiana was going to be there.
Asia goes from 4.5 to 8. Africa goes from 5 to 9. CONCACAF from 3.5 to 6. Commonwealth from 4.5 to 6. How is that fair? Oceania from 0.5 to 1. So they qualified directly, I guess.
Okay.
And UEFA goes from 13 to 16.
I was just terrified that we were going to have like the British Virgin Islands and Aruba in the tournament here. But yeah, this is not what's going to happen.
No.
St. Kitts and Nevis.
But you are going to, like, we talked about it in a prior show. Yeah. You are going to have some wonky games.
You are absolutely going to have some wonky games. Well, thank you for today's trivia question. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance.
I'm sorry I didn't.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Hopefully a listener to the pod or the stream got it right themselves. Hey, let us know if you get the questions right. Don't lie. Be honest. Did you get the question right? I'd love to know how many people get the World Cup trivia question. All right, tomorrow, which is Saturday, match day 5. We start off early in the morning with Tunisia versus Australia.
Lars,
you're on assignment again, Lars.
I mean, my long-suffering girlfriend may have asked if we can go to the farmers market and then have lunch right about that time
at 10 a.m.
I'll see what I can do.
I'm sure we'll be able to finagle a quick recap of Tunisia, Australia amongst all of us.
Yes. Watch it turn out to be like the craziest World Cup game of all time, and none of us watched it. 7 o'clock, it's Poland versus the team with all that fighting spirit, Saudi Arabia, the neighbors.
So this one I'm much more interested in than I thought I was going to be. Obviously, after Saudi Arabia doing well against Argentina. And if anyone haven't come across this yet, the sort of video that's being shared online of Hervé Renard's halftime team talk is fantastic.
No, what is it about?
He yells at him.
I posted it in the WhatsApp group.
He sent it to us, but it's been on Twitter.
Does he cuss?
To me.
Well, he certainly talks loudly in English, right? And then that's
he speaks in English, and there's the translator there. The translator is the real MVP of the situation.
He is, because he translates with the emotion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Renard's like yelling at him. And
I will tweet that out on our Twitter account at the KickAround for anybody who hasn't seen it, myself included.
Wearing the white shirt, of course.
And I think it was someone. I think it was Didier Drogba actually who made the point on British TV. Who knows Renard, because Renard he knows him a bit because he's coached the Ivory Coast, that you can clearly tell that the way he speaks to the players, you can only really do as a coach if you're really close with them to begin with. Like, if they don't like you to begin with, that's a level of like shouting you can't really go to, because then they'll just turn off.
Just whereas culturally?
Yeah, you have to have a familiarity with them for them to respond to that. But Renard is a really fascinating character. He's someone he's French-born, never been successful in the club game, but again won the AFCON with Zambia completely out of the blue. and was the guy to finally get Ivory Coast over the line and win the AFCON with them after many years of trying and failing, and then took Morocco to the World Cup for the first time in a long time for them. So he has a really good track record of going into like totally different cultures and different cultures from his own, and getting a connection with the players and getting something out of them. And, full marks to for the performance he got out of Saudi Arabia in that first game.
Fascinating. Plus, he's handsome.
Very handsome.
Okay. All right. If you say so. The next two games are, these are choice World Cup group games. France, Denmark at 10 a.m. America time. I'm very much looking forward to this one, although I feel like I'm the only person feeling that way. You guys don't seem...
France, Denmark? No, I think
I'm looking forward to it. I'm just worried for my Nordic brethren. I worry that Denmark are not as good as I hoped they were going to be. And I worry that France are...
Since I had them going to the final, Lars.
Lars, what have we learned?
Not to overreact to the first
don't
game
overreact to the first games in the world. So there'll be a little...
Thomas Delaney injured, out for the tournament. Kasper Dolberg looks like a shadow of himself up front. Cornelius is a clumsy man-child. They haven't... Yeah, they've lost an important guy in midfield. They don't have a striker, and France are cooking and have Giroud playing instead of Benzema, which I like a lot. So
right, that's your boy.
I have completely, because you remember from the preview shows, I went pretty big on I think Denmark will actually win this group, and I've completely changed my mind. I've actually have a France win here as one of in my betting column for the weekend, and it hurts me to say it, but I think it's going to go wrong for my Danish friends.
I think we all had Denmark finishing first, so I have to pick Denmark here to somehow squeak out the 3 points, and I know that you, Peter, have them going really far.
I have them going to the final.
Yeah,
yes.
So do you still believe in them now?
No, I do. I think this probably ends up as a draw.
Okay. So they'll get
I was counting on a French meltdown, which apparently isn't happening, at least based on the first game. But again, don't overreact by the first game. So maybe there's a meltdown yet to come. And the last game of the day, I think this is going to be a fantastic game, especially considering how game one went. Argentina, Mexico. And there's always, and now I'm not Mexican, but I know a lot of Mexican fans, and there's always been this thing about Mexico as a national team when they get the opportunity to play Argentina or Brazil, and even to some degree like a Colombia or one of the South American teams. It's like we're the little brother. We're here to prove ourselves, and man, this just feels like a real opportunity. I think this is going to be a great battle.
Now, Mexico has never beaten Argentina in World Cups.
Yes,
they've played them well, but they've never beaten them.
Argentina's got to play much better than they did the other day.
But Argentina's playing for their lives too.
They very much are. Yes.
God, what a game! It's going to be a good game, and Mexico's playing for the eighth straight getting out of group stage streak, right? So
you imagine just Ochoa just having a mad one in goal and sending Messi home. Wouldn't that be a thing?
Yeah, we're in a situation where Argentina-Mexico actually has a scenario where Mexico wins and knocks Argentina out of the World Cup that so many people have predicted them to win. That would
Including
be
me.
Not us, though.
I had them to win.
I know.
Yeah, all three of us.
All three of us did.
Yeah, but we're like in the majority.
Yeah.
I mean, how many out of all of the predictions of who wins a World Cup?
Yeah.
Argentina's leading it by I would think by quite a bit.
Well, Brazil's pretty favored too, but let's
the number
bring this
of
up.
people.
Let's bring this up now. It's relevant to this. Brazil also now, because of Neymar's injury, right? I mean, they're not quite. They'll get out of group without Neymar, but I don't know if they can raise the trophy without an effective Neymar through the 7
And what
games.
is that? What is the stat? He's out for the group stage, and Danileo's out too. And
word out of Brazil is that yes, he's out through the group, but it's a sprained ankle. Have you ever had a sprained ankle?
Yes, I've had the grapefruit ankle.
Yeah, that's 10 days away, 8 days away, the group stage. I don't know if he plays in that round of 16 match. Anyway, I'm just saying, Argentina's having issues. They may not advance. Brazil may not be the team that gets to the final. This opens up the door for fill in the blank.
update from our resident betting correspondent. In the book, the bookmakers have Brazil as significantly bigger favorites now than at the start of the tournaments, actually. Because
Is that because Argentina's lost?
Yeah, Argentina looking bad.
But now
Germany
with Neymar's injury, is that
Germany looking terrible. They've also, that kind of changes the market a little bit. But it's I think with the Neymar thing, they have so much firepower. This isn't 2014 when you took Neymar out and they all had a severe emotional incident and couldn't play football anymore.
Yeah,
this isn't what's going to happen to these guys, I don't think.
Okay, and I promised I'd tell you what I wore for today's U.S. Men's National. So just to remind everybody, I have an 06, my favorite design of the U.S. It's the one that's got the racing stripe vertically down the left. I put it on the Wales game only to find that there was a stain in the middle, and the question and
the shape of
and the stain turned out is in the shape of Qatar, weirdly enough. And the question was, do I wash it and try to get the stain out, or is it a lucky stain and keep it? And the two of you were no help whatsoever yesterday.
No help. I said keep it. Lars said wash it. You had a choice.
Helpful.
It's very helpful. I gave you exactly what I thought.
Knocks each other out. And I allowed myself to make the decision to wear it with the stain simply because of the message to me that it is in the oddity of the shape of the nation of Qatar.
So the question is, do you keep rolling with it?
I will continue to wear it until the...
It's clearly the wrong answer.
It's clearly a draw jersey. I'm kind of with Lars
exactly
now.
Right. You've
this
drawn
jersey
2 games in a row.
Draws, and if you draw against
Iran,
you
don't need a draw for the next one.
You don't advance.
You mean the okay? So you're saying I should? So if I wash it and wear it against Iran and we draw or lose, I'm going to be pissed off at both of you two.
Maybe we should each.
We got some time.
No. The only thing this shirt has proven is that the U.S. draw every time you wear it with that stain. That's what we know. Does the draw help you in the next game? No, it does not. So you wash the shirt.
What if the stain won't come out?
Well, that's a whole nother type of thing. Like I think that's
that's a whole issue. Then we have to ask, what
kind of stain is it?
How did you stain this, Peter?
and let me again. I mean, I know we're staying out of the politics of it all, but if you actually have a football shirt with a stain shaped like Qatar that won't wash out, like it's hard not to. It's a very powerful
There's
metaphor.
A message. There is a
it's
message.
It's a very powerful metaphor there.
There is. Lars, thank you once again for joining us for Match Day 5 of Qatar KickAround. We love having you on this thing.
It has been more entertaining than the game was.
Oh.
Ooh.
You're such a soccer snob.
Listen, I just think you're not seeing it clearly because you're so emotionally involved. If you had no stakes, if you had no skin in the game, that were not an exciting 90 minutes.
Biggest TV audience for a soccer game in 8 years. And we got a 0.
Yeah, I thought that was a
that is.
I did think that was a shame.
I do. After all of the hype and the endless commercials during the NFL game, and for Fox to end up with a 0-0 draw between England and USA, I know I'm never going to hear or see the end of it from the non-soccer fans in the United States.
My baseball friends were texting me like, "Oh my God, this is like soccer. This is terrible for soccer." And I'm like, "Well, soccer will survive just fine. Soccer will, but." The soccer industry in the U.S., maybe we could have used a different spell.
Sure, we could have had a winning moment, but Christian Pulisic snuck that one in. I'll take it. All right. Thank you, Lars, once again. Thank you, Andy.
Anytime.
And thank you to those watching the live stream or downloading and listening to the podcast. We love and adore you. We will speak to you tomorrow for Matchday Stick. We will speak to you tomorrow for Matchday 6.
That's not a number.
It's not a number. We will speak to you tomorrow for Matchday 6. Go on, get stuck in, and win your 50s.
Matchday.